Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to show you how to Flextime vocals the right way. Now, if you use Flextime, you know it's a really powerful tool, but it also comes with its gripes. So I'm going to show you how I like to Flextime vocals to get the best results and what to watch out for with the problematic stuff. So let's dive into it. Let me show you a quick example of the vocals that we're working on here.
How could you treat me like that, girl? It's not okay. You drive me crazy, make me feel like I'm insane. Just like a puppet on a string, lead me astray. That's not okay. You got me.
So a little bit of a pop punk banger here, but there are some little timing issues in the vocal and we want to make these really tight and punchy. So they sound pretty good for the most part. It's just some little things here and there that could be tweaked to make it really tight. First things first, before you do flex time, you should always try and cut and nudge things if you can, but if you find that it's just mostly like little phrases that are going in and out of time that actually require a bit of stretching, then you're going to use flex time instead of trying to slice and nudge things. But if you can get away with simply cutting or nudging a track to get the timing good, then do that before you do flex time. But if we're going to flex it, let's do it. So what we want to do is press Command F, and then it shows up our flex time options on the side here. So we've got lead vocal, a double track, and a harmony track. So what we want to do is on our lead vocal, we want to open up our flex tab here and go to monophonic. Always use monophonic. Never use polyphonic or any of the other options on vocals, just always use monophonic. Okay, so you can see it's opened up flex time. We've got some markers here where it's found the transients in the voice, but we're not going to worry about that too much. Now what we're going to do is just mute the other vocals for now because we don't want to listen to those while we're editing this lead vocal track. So double click on the top of this audio file. It's going to open up our audio editor, and then we want to click on File, which we're already on at the moment. And then we're going to come over to this little tab here and open that up. That's going to show us all our flex markers. Now let's just get rid of a bunch of this. So just click on this minus, just really free it up. We could almost get rid of them all. You don't really need them. They're going to be more problematic probably than anything else. So now that that's done, let's get into flexing this vocal.
How could you treat me like that, girl? It's not okay.
You can see the end of the phrase gets a little rushed around here. So I think it's on the not okay.
That girl is not okay.
So it just races ahead. You can see on these 16th notes, it's a little bit ahead of the beat. So what we're going to do is just click near the top up here and make a marker right at the end of our phrase here. And we might go ahead and put another one here at the start of our next phrase. Now let's do the same for the start. Just put one right before the vocal. Now the thing is, the less markers you can use to get your vocal tight, the better it's going to sound and the less artifacts you're going to pick up along the way. So let's boost up our wave file a little bit. And let's have a little look here. What we want to do is not put any markers in the middle of the words when we have the choice to. So we want to either put markers in these gaps or like before the vocal, but try not to flex in between a vocal because that's when you're going to start to get a bit glitchy, which I'll show you in a moment.
How could you treat me like that, girl?
So a little bit behind the beat here. So let's grab this and drag it back. And we can see this is looking pretty good. This looks pretty good. We could maybe just drag that slightly forward. And then let's keep looking through. That looks all pretty good. And here we start to get a bit out of time. So let's put a flex marker before this so that we can drag around here. So we're kind of dragging over a bit of sibilance.
Girl, it's not okay.
An S sound. So you can kind of get away with it a little bit more in those kind of places as opposed to in between like melodic notes. Okay, and we can see we could pull that a bit more if we wanted to go really tight with it, but let's just nudge in this little gap here. And we see it looks pretty good with the grid. Let's have a listen to that.
How could you treat me like that, girl? It's not okay.
This little bit here sounds a bit rushed to me, so we need to do what I said not to do and put a marker in the middle here and drag it over. Let's have a listen.
How could you treat me like that, girl? It's not okay.
Yeah, and we could do the same here at the front. Bring this up, and we're making this super tight now. Let's have a listen to it.
How could you treat me like that, girl? It's not okay.
That sounds pretty good. Now, the fact is, we can kind of get away with putting markers in those places because it's such a loud track. There's drums going on, there's bass. If this was like a really stripped back track or a stripped back section of a song, you might not be able to get away with it because if you listen to this in solo, you might start to hear the artifacts on these parts where I put a marker right in the middle of a vocal part.
How could you treat me like that, girl? It's not okay.
This marker here is the big one where you would probably hear something.
How could you treat me like that, girl?
It's like this little invisible bump in the vocal, but when you've got the track going, you can't notice it.
How could you treat me like that, girl? It's not okay.
Now that sounds super tight. So we can have a listen to our next phrase.
You drive me crazy, make me feel like I'm insane.
And you can just do the same thing. You put a marker at the end, and then we just come through and we look at the timing and listen and try and get this nice and tight. So we can see it's starting to fall behind the beat here a little bit, falling a little bit off the timing, and then a little bit rushed at the end as it tries to come back in. So we could put a marker here where it's in time, and a marker here where it's in time, and then we could drag this stuff around in the middle. So we could pull this back a little bit, get that nice and tight, and then pull this one back a little bit, or it's rushed ahead, and stretch these out a little bit, and then have a listen to what this sounds like.
You drive me crazy, make me feel like I'm insane.
And we could probably fix this a little bit up as well, make it a little bit tighter here.
You drive me crazy, make me feel like I'm insane.
That sounds solid to me. So let's just find a spot over here and just flex time this really hard and have a listen to what would happen if we flexed every note and the artifacts will get picked up.
Just like a puppet on a string, make me astray.
So you could hear that then, even with the track going right there. That was pretty gross.
Just like a puppet on a string, make me astray.
So that's the kind of thing you got to watch out for.
Just like a puppet on a string, lead me astray.
So you can't flex time every single note like that, because you start to hear these little bumps where the marker is, and you don't want to hear that. It just makes the vocal sound kind of tacky, sort of poorly edited.
Just like a puppet on a string, lead me astray.
Yeah, you can really hear it right on this one, on the
Lead me astray.
Yeah, it's like weird little bumpy sound. So if you were doing that and you heard that, you just get your eraser and get rid of it.
String lead me astray.
Even on this one, get rid of that.
String lead me astray.
Sounds heaps better.
Just like a puppet.
That one sounds bad there, so I wouldn't flex time that. Maybe you'd flex from here and stretch it back a little bit, maybe. Get rid of that. You could just stretch this whole thing back a bit.
Just like a puppet on a string, lead me.
These sound nasty. Get rid of that.
Like a puppet on a string, lead me astray.
So that sounds heaps better. So the less markers you use, the better. And you just have to play around with it, finding that sweet spot between what's too much editing and what's enough editing. Because you don't have to edit it 100%. As long as it's pretty tight sounding, that's fine. Every single word doesn't have to be 100% on the grid. As long as it's close, it's going to sound good. So that's pretty much how I would approach the lead vocal. So just being careful with the markers, stretching what I can. Even sometimes you can get away with just putting a marker at the front and the back and just stretching it in a little bit, and that's all it needs. So it just depends on the vocal, how much it sways in the timing, or if they've just slowed off the beat a little bit, stretching it in just tightens it up. But if they're kind of speeding up and slowing down a little bit, then you have to do something like this. Okay, so let's have a look at how we would approach the backing vocals, because once you've done that, you got your lead vocal sounding good, you're going to want to tighten up those double tracks and the harmonies. Now, obviously, if you have something like vocal line, you can just use that. You can chuck it on there and it'll match it up. But if you're just using Logic software and you don't want to pay for anything extra, then you would just use Flextime again, put it into monophonic, and basically just put the tracks next to each other like this, and then just work your way through and just edit it. Don't worry about artifacts or anything, especially for double tracks. Like, you can really go hard on this. You can just line it all up, stretch it out. Don't really worry about too much. Just go through it, get it nice and tight, line up all these bits of sibilants, get everything looking tight together. And, you know, it doesn't have to be 100% because those little variations in the double track are good, but something like that.
How could you treat me like that, girl? It's not okay.
That sounds sweet. And the double tracks tend to sit back a little bit in the mix anyway. So as long as your foreground vocal, that lead vocal, sounds good and you haven't got any weird artifacts in that, you can kind of edit these backing vocals and the harmonies a little bit harder and no one's going to notice. So go to town on the edits with the doubles and the harmonies. And then once you're done editing, what I like to do is, I'm a big committer, so I will just flatten out these Flextime edits and just be done with it and turn Flextime off and not worry about it chewing up a little bit of CPU in the background. So I generally will just find a spot where there's nothing in the vocal track like here, and then I'll just split it. So you can either just grab your scissor tool, just put a cut in it, and then we're just going to highlight these tracks and join them together. So I just press J and that joins them up for me. Press create, and then that consolidates the file, and then you can turn Flextime off, and it's written all those flex edits into this new audio file. But if you don't want to commit that hard, you could always just select a track, press Control B, and then bounce it in place. So you just make sure you have bypass effects plugins on, and you could just bounce this in place, and then it's going to bounce those edits there for you. And then you've got your new edited vocal track here, and you can just mute this one, and then press H, and then you could hide it in the background, and then press H again, and it's gone, but it's there if you need to come back to it. And then once you're done editing, you should have a nice tight vocal that sounds something like this.
How could you treat me like that, girl? It's not okay. You drive me crazy, make me feel like I'm insane. Just like a puppet on a string, lead me astray. That's not okay. You got me sick, feeling hypnotized.
So this is an unreleased track that's going to be coming out soon by a band called Chasing Clarity. So make sure you check those guys out and keep an eye out for this little pop punk banger that's in the works. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you want to support the channel, make sure you check out the description link below. Go to my website and pick yourself up a drum sample pack. If you're keen to watch a full mixing tutorial, make sure you stick around and check out this next video that's coming up where I'll take you through mixing an indie rock song.
You got me sick, feeling